And we're live. Miriam Lancewood, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to our earliest ever podcast.
Earliest ever?
Yeah, earliest ever. 9:30 in the morning. Yeah, no. So thank you. Appreciate you joining us.
Good to be here.
For people who don't know you, let's get this up first of all. Jace can get in on that. Is that a good framing there, Jace?
Hold it closer to your face.
Hold it closer to my face.
Yeah, it's in focus.
Although that will lose sales.
Yes, well, to put it in front of your face, but close to your face so it's in focus.
Published author, Woman in the Wilderness is the book, a story of survival, love and self-discovery in New Zealand. You are in Dunedin for the Writers' Festival, which is now finished, was over the weekend. And I saw your write-up in the Writers' Festival and thought, I would love to talk to this interesting lady because they referenced you as the female Bear Grylls.
Yes, they did.
Now you say that's
surprised.
not. Yeah, I was thinking, oh, that's good. That's a good tagline. You know, you guys have done well, but you're saying that wasn't even your tagline. You haven't referenced yourself as that. That's other people calling you that.
I would never say I'm the female Bear Grylls. No, I did see that for the first time with the Chinese translation.
Yeah.
I asked a Chinese friend what did they put on the back cover, and it was indeed this is the female Bear Grylls. I'm surprised Chinese people are sort of know him even.
Who Bear Grylls is?
Yeah.
So why do you? So it's because is it because you're for real and he's kind of? I mean, he's obviously a for real survivalist, but what he does on television is not for real.
Oh, he goes home. He goes to sleeps in hotels. Goes home to his family in London. He doesn't live in the wilderness.
So it's actually a bit of an insult to call you the female Bear Grylls.
Yeah, well, it's sort of.
They should call him the male Miriam Lancewood.
Yeah, indeed.
Should go that way, something like that.
Oh no, never do that. But
So
yeah.
you're a really interesting person. We'll get to the whole story. We've got time. But you live. Long story short, is you live in the wilderness. You live in the wild.
Yes, since 2010.
Why? I mean, I'd like to know the journey before that. I mean, you're obviously not Kiwi native. All right.
Sorry.
That's all right. You're obviously not a Kiwi native from your accent, from the Netherlands.
Yes, born in Holland.
Okay. And so what took Miriam Lancewood, born in Holland, to get to, hey, let's go live in the bush permanently? There must be a storyline there.
Yep.
Is it one of hurt? Did you hate society? Is it a good thing? Did you just love nature so much? How did you get there?
Yeah, certainly not hate society, not at all. I quite like people.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Really, that we love to live in beauty, the beauty of the natural world. But that really started with meeting Peter.
Right, your husband.
Yeah, who is originally from Nelson.
Yeah.
And grew up on a sheep farm. And he ended up being a university lecturer.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't like it anymore and thought I should be out there in the mountains and or not even in New Zealand. He resigned from his job, sold everything, and went to live in India.
Oh, wow.
For 5 years. And I met him at the end of 5 years while I was traveling by myself in India.
Mm-hmm.
And together we walked the Himalayas. Fantastic journey.
Wow.
And we traveled a lot together for some years before we came to New Zealand. And in New Zealand, I had to work as a teacher. I was trained as a physical education teacher.
Right.
And I worked for a year. And during that year, we thought, wow, those mountains are so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And we went tramping and camping every weekend. And then we thought, well, why should we go back to a house that we don't need, to a car that we don't need?
Mm-hmm.
And for all of that, we had to work. And we thought, well, why don't organize an adventure, a sort of an expedition for 4 seasons. We just do 1 year in the wilderness. Let's see how that goes. So we set off just with the idea of living 1 year in the mountains. And we didn't know it would end up being 9 years.
Right. So it was one of those, let's have a small, attainable target, 12 months.
Yeah.
And you've never looked back.
Yeah, indeed. And after that year, we thought, well, we're not going back to a job. Why would we?
The life you led before meeting Peter in India, would it have been what people call sort of a typical life of a girl, woman, female coming out of Holland? Nothing. When I say nothing special, I don't dismiss
nothing
your
special.
achievements, but like, you know, you had friends, you went out on a Friday night, you were a teacher, I assume, just a normal life.
Well, I never did so much socializing, I must say.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in sort of a small town. And when I was about 14, I was sort of discovered as a talent for athletics, for pole vaulting.
Oh, wow, cool.
And this coach said, well, you could really get quite far if you do a lot of training. So I did. I was very sort of fanatic. And so I spent all my free time in training, running, gymnastics, weight training to become the pole vaulter. So that went really well. But the side effect is I never did much going out and drinking and all that I missed.
So you're an athlete?
Oh, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not now.
And did you, and with that, did you achieve? Were there national championships? Were you internationally competing?
Yeah, I stopped fairly early, but yeah, I became 6-time Dutch champion, and I went to the Youth Olympic Games.
Oh, cool.
But when I finished my study physical education, I happened to be quite young still, so I finished at 20, and when I was 21, I left to teach in Africa. So I taught for 1 year as a volunteer in Zimbabwe, and after that year, I went to India. So I basically left everything behind on my 21st birthday.
Wow. And for the rest of the time, you've been on some version of traveling.
Yes, indeed. And then in India, I met Peter, and then I came to New Zealand. So I really left Holland in 2004.
So outside of your time in New Zealand and the times you've lived in the bush, which we obviously definitely want to get to, just to show Bear Grylls a thing or two, is, when you're international, what are some of the highlights? What are some of the things that you think of seeing and doing overseas that are really good memories?
When I went traveling?
Yeah.
I think it was walking in the Himalayas.
Yeah. So how high did you go?
Oh, we walked over 8 mountain ranges.
Yeah.
5 of them over 5,000 meters.
Wow.
But of course, everything is much higher. You start on 3,000 meters. We walked from Dharamsala to Ladakh.
Did you ever
us
think
2
about
months.
Staying there?
Like forever in India?
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to get long-term residency.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I think it's quite polluted, the water and that. So we got constantly sick.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so from there came back to New Zealand, round trip, ended up back towards Nelson.
Peter did, yeah. Of course, for me, it was the first time in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what were your impressions when you landed in New Zealand for the first time?
Oh, so amazing to see the bright colors. And because the air is so clear.
Yeah.
Everything, even from airplane, you see the amazing colors. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you connected with Peter, and you are married now? He's your life partner?
Yeah. So we got married because of to keep my Dutch citizenship.
Yeah.
To have 2 passports, you have to be married to a New Zealander, believe it or not.
Right.
So we did that. Yeah.
So what takes you? And you've said you worked for a year. You went into the bush. You saw the bush and thought, "Why we go home?" And you've stayed there for 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah. After the first year, you mean?
Yeah.
After the first 4 seasons.
Why?
Yeah.
Why are you living in the bush?
Why?
Yeah.
Oh, we really loved that first year living like that, and it's amazing to live in such beauty and such raw wilderness. It's not pretty, It's not like a park. It is everything is rough, and the rivers they often flood, and these huge boulders and trees coming down, and it's really full on. And then you got perfectly good weather with blue sky, and then it can change just like that into a storm, and the river floods so much you wouldn't recognize it anymore. And so the weather is very changeable.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very exciting.
So it sounds like it's still an adventure.
Yes, very much so.
It also sounds like you're a bit of an adrenaline junkie. The thing that seems to excite you is the edge of danger there. I mean, you're talking about boulders rolling and big storms. Is that part of the attraction? It's a kick. It gets the blood flowing.
Oh well, it's sort of good when you feel I survived it.
Yeah.
But at that time, it's very scary to be in a tent.
Have you ever had like serious close calls or dangerous times?
I think the thunderstorms is the most dangerous thing.
Right.
So we were in a tent, and then we hear branches coming down and trees falling down.
Mm-hmm.
Think, we're just in a plastic tent, anything could happen, and accidents do happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that, apart from that, we're very, very careful because you have to completely self-reliant, and you're responsible for your own life. So never sort of really close calls. Thank God.
But is it literally just a 2-person tent that you put on your pack and walk out? Is that the size of the accommodation you're sleeping in?
Yeah, and the tent is so small that we cannot fit next to each other. So Peter has to sleep with his head on the other side, and me with my head
So
on
top and tail.
Yeah, it's so narrow.
Wow. Because I guess I mean, it's going to sound a bit ridiculous to you, but I love those programs. Like, you probably don't know what they are, but sort of survival programs. There's a program called Alone on Discovery Channel where they drop people in the wild, Vancouver Island, and they leave them with 2 or 3 things, but they leave them on their own. And the idea is to survive as long as they can in the wild.
Oh yeah.
And
So what do they bring? What are the 2 or 3 things?
I think they have a flint for lighting the fire.
Yeah. Why not matches?
I guess because if you're going to be there for 3 months, which is typically what the winter is,
Oh yeah.
then they wouldn't last for 3 months for a bunch of matches.
Yeah.
So they a sparking flint to light it, and a couple of other things, but they have to hunt their own food and catch their own food and that kind of stuff. It does look hard and scary, but then again, I also think they're in a place where there are mountain lions, bears, these sorts of places as well.
And a cameraman?
Nope. No, they do it themselves. No, it's good. That's why it's called Alone. They're by themselves, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But they also have like a satellite phone. So if there's an emergency,
Yeah.
they can call the distress signal and the boat's there 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
What about, do you have any kind of way of contacting the outside world if there's a genuine emergency?
No, we don't.
Not at all. So if one of you broke a leg or had a serious incident, you have to either deal with it there or the other person has to hike out to get help.
That's right.
And you're cool with that?
Yep.
So you don't even have like a personal locator beacon type thing, like distress button, PLB thing?
No, not with Peter and I. Instead, we have quite a big first aid kit
Yeah.
with very strong painkillers. So if
Right.
we have any emergencies, then we can, the person being ill can take the painkillers with
Yeah.
a broken leg or something,
Yeah.
and then the other person have to run out. Yeah, but nothing like that happened.
How far are you from the road at any one time? So I'm thinking about you being in the bush, and you can be, 300 meters into the bush, or you can be 30 k's into the bush. So where do you guys set yourself up in?
Because we're sort of nomadic,
Yeah.
it's quite different all the time. But our furthest away was 4 days walk to the
Wow.
nearest road.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you always know where that is? Like, do you know
Where we are?
Or
Yeah.
do you know where the road is, say for example, or where civilization is compared to you?
Yeah, we always got maps.
Right. So you know exactly where you are. You follow your maps, compasses and maps, but no one else knows. Only you know where you are.
Yeah, indeed. So in the beginning, I was really, one of my fears before we set out was to get lost. And I thought, I'll go hunting by myself, and what happens if I get lost?
Yeah.
And I'm there sort of roaming by myself in a forest, running after a goat and can't find the goat anymore, and then I try to go back to camp and get lost. But that's not at all the case. It's totally, you don't get lost. Because in New Zealand, you have mountains and valleys, and you can always hear the river.
And you always would, I assume, try and camp by a river so you've got a water source.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So I know which river I'm on.
Yeah.
So if I don't know where I am, just go down to the river and follow down, and there's the tent.
Do you guys have like wilderness calls? Do you have calls that you do to each other to find and locate where you are?
Oh, no.
No.
Marco Polo.
Marco Polo or
Nothing
like that.
I remember because our high school in New Zealand, growing up in New Zealand, we do a lot of sort of outdoor education. It's a very compared to say growing up in a city in some city somewhere. And so we did a lot of tramps and stuff at school. And so I can vividly remember some of the survival training we had before we did school tramps and things like that. And the one thing that's always stuck in my head is if you get lost in the bush, just head downhill. Because you'll get to a stream, and then you can follow that stream
to the sea.
in one direction to where you get to the sea, and at the mouth of the river there'll be a settlement, and at the very least you're going to be following a river, and you'll have water, and it'll keep you not going in circles. And so basically, just if you get lost, go downhill is what I was taught. So
Yeah.
and so I guess if you're living in mountainous ranges, you'll be doing the same thing. You'll be just using the rivers to track and stuff, I guess. So
Yeah, indeed.
Fun
One
times.
of the things I discovered is that when you're very far away from civilization, days of it, and maybe it's something to do with altitude, and maybe, I don't know what it is, but something happens to rationality. And things become really very intense. And that's why people get lost. They lose it.
Right.
And I've heard stories of people getting lost, and everyone knows you go downhill, and the person following the river up.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Like a madness sets in.
yeah, madness.
Wow.
And I noticed this myself. I've never gone mad, but indeed that it's a little bit on the edge. That I think, well, I've got to keep myself together here, you know. And I'll never have that, you know, among people in cities and that.
Do you think it's more good planning or more good luck that you've never had a close call? Or a bit of both?
Oh, very good planning,
Yeah.
and extremely careful. So we go very slow. One really good tool for that is always being in sandals.
Right. So you
because
can't
when
rush.
it's out- No, we go very slow. And we walked the Te Araroa Trail a couple of years back. Goes from Cape Reinga to Bluff, 3,000 kilometers. And other people do this in 4 or 5 months. And we did it in 10. So we got twice as much time because we are going twice as slow. And I see people walking past and they jump over stones in the river. But stones in the river are very slippery. And I think, well, that's very risky. And I would never do that.
It's funny because Jay's talking about the outdoor education. I remember being at school and crossing rivers, and they just say you get your feet wet, you walk through the river, you don't try and avoid it because or else you slip over.
Yeah, indeed.
So the reason you take longer, is that because you walk slower or you stay in a location longer or both?
Both, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
both. But also, what's the point of us rushing to the end? We got plenty of time.
Yeah, you got nowhere to be. It's not like most of us who have got a week's holiday and have to be
Yeah,
back.
indeed. We have no time restriction, and that's the beauty of our life.
Yeah.
They have no time at all. So we got literally an ocean of time, and so we may as well enjoy it as much as we can. And then when we come to the end, we can do something else, but certainly not time restricted.
Where is campsite at the moment? Where are you living at the moment?
We're at the moment in the Nelson region.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just staying with a friend because I've got all these writers' festivals going on in
Right.
these couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
So
when
it's-
you come to these sorts of writers' festivals, are you not just tempted to just disappear up into the bush above, up the shelter belt, the town belt, and just camp in the bush rather than a hotel?
Yeah, a little bit. But of course, I also make the most of it and sleep in this soft bed and have a warm shower and that. But
do
I
you
did
miss that,
notice-
or do you actually think you do? Because I watch a lot of movies and see people that spend a lot of time out in the bush and they come back and they get put in a hotel room. They sleep on the floor because it's actually more comfortable because they're so used to sleeping on the ground, sort of thing. Is it stuff like
Yeah,
that?
I
for
have
you,
done
or-
that in the
yeah.
past. Yeah, not last couple of nights. But what I noticed is the city is so comfortable physically,
Yeah.
but it's warm in the hotel and I have a warm shower and that and don't get wet. But psychologically, it's quite challenging.
Explain that.
And I could see why people have a lot of psychological problems. Like I heard about anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I have no idea what a panic attack is, but I can sort of imagine. It's psychologically a very challenging place. It's stressful. The traffic, all these appointments, people are running around. I'm running around to meet all the appointments just in the last couple of days. And yeah, I can see why people's problems are generally growing.
So I would think in the bush, if you feel a version of anxiety, which you're not going to feel anxiety, but if you feel a version of, I don't really want to travel today, I don't really want to go to our next destination, you just don't.
Well, we don't have a destination
Yeah.
as
Well,
such.
if you're planning on going the next day and you feel like not going when you wake up, you just don't
When it's
go.
raining, for instance. No,
Yeah.
we're not going anywhere.
Whereas
no, indeed.
for people in cities, if they don't feel like going to work that day, typically
Yeah.
they have no choice. They get up and go to work.
Yeah, indeed. So in the city, you are manipulating your environment.
Right.
It's your responsibility to get on time at work. But in the wilderness, you are subject to whatever comes. So you're sort of receiving the weather. When I go hunting, I'm dependent on luck. So I am happy for anything to receive. So I'm not in control. And that, if you are in control, you are also in stress because you have to make it happen. Yeah.
It makes me think about like a God complex. In a city, you're taking the place of the God complex. You're like, I will control everything around me.
Yeah, you have
Whereas
to.
you're saying in the bush, you're saying the surroundings are actually in control of me.
Yeah.
But you're saying that actually brings freedom and peace, some people might hear that idea that I have no control, and they might think that would be incredibly stressful. But you say it's the opposite.
Yeah, it would not be stressful unless you have a time limit. So a lot of people die in the mountains because they have to be back on Monday.
Right.
So on Sunday they have to cross that river to get to the hut, to get to the track, to get to the car park. And then you have a problem. But if you also have no time limit, then you can be subject to whatever happens. Another big difference is anxiety in the city. People have constant anxiety. But in the bush, you are very afraid during the thunderstorm. But when it's over, you are relaxed again.
And probably grateful.
Yeah, grateful. And then, so it goes up and down and not at constant stress level.
Is it? Because I think, because anxiety and things like that, because I've read a little bit about things like that, and often you find that it's actually kind of based in our caveman brain. The anxiety is coming from because our caveman brain hasn't evolved at the rate that society has, and so we're anxious about things because where was I going with this? Sorry, I just had a brain fart and completely forgotten.
Yeah, then we get adrenaline rush.
Yeah, it's sort of when you're out in the wilderness, my brain just completely gave up on me then. It's gone.
Caveman brain?
Yeah, caveman brain, because the anxieties we have, that's right, things like the fight or flight mechanism.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah, and in society we don't have predators. We aren't going to get attacked by a mountain lion going to the office. Yeah. And so our brains look for other attacks. So even having a conversation with somebody and them raising an alternative point of view to our point of view, now our brains attribute that to. That's why a lot of people get into arguments, because they attribute the counter opinion of somebody as an attack of a predator.
Yeah, indeed.
And so our brains go to that caveman state and think, I have to attack. And so the adrenaline kicks in, all of those other brain chemicals that cause anxiety and the fight or flight mechanism, the heighten, the heart races faster, all those things that you would experience in the bush when you're hunting or being hunted
for short periods of time,
but for short periods of time. But we are feeling that in the city all the time because our caveman brains haven't adapted to modern life.
I wonder what the effect is on your body.
Exactly.
To have that sort of adrenaline and fear.
But if you're living in the bush in a storm for a month, you would come out wrecked, I imagine.
Yeah, or like being in war or something,
it'd be
constant
like PTSD,
stress.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I like the idea of disappearing into the bush myself. I've always wanted to do it.
I don't think you could do it with the amount of tech you like to play with. I think that you.
Well, I was actually thinking that's actually the reason I want to, because I spend so much time on technology. I kind of want to just go out into the bush with a flint and have to spend an hour starting the fire. Because I wouldn't know how to start it, so it'd take me an hour. Not going away for like a month because I'd die, but going away for a weekend and just having nothing but myself and my wits. It appeals to me.
Sounds like a 7-part series here, Jace.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I don't want people saying how inept I am in the wilderness.
But speaking of, I mean, there is every chance that someone like Discovery Channel will see this, hear about this, the book Women in the Wilderness, and think there's a series here. Would you? I mean, but that would obviously mean then all of a sudden you're going to have camera people around you, unless they do it like alone and they, give yourself. Would you do something like that? Would that interest you? To put your life on film, so to speak?
If it's a short period of time, I'm up for anything.
Yeah.
Especially if it only takes 1 month of my life. Yeah, I'd like to experience such it's a unique chance. I mean, how often do you get the offer like that? But we did do quite a lot of television in the last couple of years since the book came out. One of which was Ben Fogle in the UK.
I know that name. What does Ben Fogle do?
Well, he's sort of the equivalent of Bear Grylls in the UK.
Right. Bring up Ben Fogle on the old Google there, Jace, so we can have a look. So you've done, see if you can do Ben Fogle and Miriam Lanswood. So you've done some stuff with him?
Yep, you can't find it because I tried to put it on YouTube, but because of copyright.
Yeah, Jace is a wizard. We'll see what he comes up with.
Oh, yeah, well, good on Jason. But it was really good fun, and of course, millions of people will look at that.
So what was that experience? You went out with him into the bush?
Yeah, we were walking at the time in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And he came to visit with a camera crew of 8 people.
Okay.
And it was really quite overwhelming. They stayed for a week.
Yeah.
And but yeah, great to meet him. He had just climbed Mount Everest. He
Wow.
had just come down
There
2
you
weeks
go.
before.
Ben Fogel, Channel 5.
So he taught me how to use a bow.
He taught you. So
No.
he is the UN patron of the wilderness. Nice. So that was...
No, I taught him, of course. He couldn't. He doesn't
Oh, you
know
taught
how
him. That's a beautiful bow.
Yeah, that's my bow.
Is that travel the world with you, that bow?
Yep, you can travel with bows and arrows.
So it's not like a dangerous weapon like a firearm. It can go on the planes with you?
No, just put it in your main luggage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Okay, so is that? Let's talk about the bow and arrow and things like gathering food, etc., etc. How do you do it? Like you're going to go back with your husband into the bush at some stage in the next month, couple of months, whatever it's going to be, after these writers' festivals, and it's day one, and you need to fill the bush pantry. What do you do?
Yeah, well, I go hunting.
Yep.
So I started off with a bow and arrow.
That one that we just saw.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was a traditional recurve takedown bow, 55 pounds to draw. And it's called Intuitive. And I thought, wow, this sounds fantastic. I'd love to master
Meaning
that.
you can't really control it. You don't really know.
It means you have no
Intuition.
idea where you're shooting.
Yeah.
And so I practiced for a year on a target,
Yeah.
and that went really well.
Yeah.
That was when I was working. Then I thought, right, I'm ready now. But it's really difficult. It's so difficult to hunt with bow and arrow. So I found that out in the years after. Only after a year or so, I was really competent with hunting. And then you don't want to go rabbit hunting with a bow because the rabbit's only small.
Yeah.
Best is goat hunting.
Right.
Yeah, so I learned a lot about goats, and this is the horn of the first goat that I shot with my bow and
there you
arrow. I've got a little horn on my necklace around my neck, always.
Yep.
And it's amazing to master that, but I also found it quite cruel because often the arrow would go into the animal, and the animal would run away.
Yeah.
I have to track it down, and it would sometimes take quite a long time. And only after 2 years, I switched to a rifle, and I discovered, wow, this is so easy.
So when you get back to the bush, you head out on day one. This time around, it'll be rifle,
Yep.
not bow. But do you still have the bow and arrow as a backup? You've still got
Yes,
it in the
I like
camp?
to. Yep, I like to keep practicing with it. And
So why
mastering
didn't you
it.
go to something like a compound bow, which obviously has easier pullback and probably more accurate?
Yeah, and you can't take that down,
Yeah.
so it's really bulky on your pack.
Right. Okay.
And to be very honest, when I first saw the compound bow, I thought, that's not a bow.
Yeah. it's a piece of machinery.
Yeah, indeed. I was quite sort of romantic what I wanted to have, and a traditional bow sounded all very cool. I was very fond of Robin Hood as a kid, and I wanted to be like him. And for all those funny reasons, I chose that bow.
So do you rob from the rich and give to the poor?
No, I don't rob anyone.
Not at all. You just take money from the rich by selling your book and give to yourself.
Yeah.
What do you do
Yeah,
for
it's all
money?
voluntarily.
Because we talked about before we came on that
Yeah.
obviously book sales is not the way to get wealthy.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do need money at times. You come to town, you get some supplies that you can't skin off a rabbit.
Yeah.
Where does the money come from?
Well, you can't make much money with selling books,
Yeah.
even if it's a so-called bestseller, if you live in a city and have to pay rent for $1,000 a week. But since we living very, very with very little money, we spend about $5,000 a year.
$100 a week.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was very quick.
Yep.
So we can live off the sales of the book.
Yeah. Okay, so that pays for everything.
Yeah, but before the book came out, I used to go busking
Okay.
with my guitar, if I had my guitar, which was sometimes not very often at all.
Do you take that into the bush?
No,
Okay.
so that's stored with a friend,
Right.
and sometimes I'll come back to that point.
Maybe you need a
quickly.
ukulele. Then you can take it into the bush
Yeah.
with you.
It gets a little bit bulky. But I go sing at the supermarket, make
Yep.
quite a bit of money,
Yep.
and that will go a really long way.
Because if you, I mean, like someone busking might make $200, $400 in a day. That's a month's worth of money that you
Exactly.
need. That's good.
Yeah.
So how often do you get out of the bush? Obviously, you forget this time period that you're doing the book tours.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's just your normal time. You haven't got anything necessarily on.
Yeah.
How often do you see civilization?
Well, it depends. On the Te Araroa Trail, for instance, we have only limited supplies, which was in our pack.
Yeah.
So we buy flour and rice, and then I would hunt. And if I shoot a goat, we can eat for a week. And then it would last a lot longer. But if I didn't, I had to walk to the nearest road, then hitchhike to the nearest town, and then come back to Peter, who was waiting for me at the tent. That would take all day. So then I get as much as possible, which would be maximum 2 weeks.
Right.
And then we follow the trail, and in 2 weeks we go back to...
So does that mean once or twice a month you might see civilization?
yeah, that was on Te Araroa Trail.
Be it a small town or whatever.
Anyway, it was a
Yeah,
shock. Yeah. But in our first year, was our longest was 4 months.
Really? And in that 4 months up in the bush, did you ever see other people? Do you come across other campers? I was going to say normal hikers, people who aren't mad and live there for 4 months, but might be going on a weekend excursion or something. Do you ever come across people?
Not very often, because we chose the areas that was really remote. But it's amazing how good fun it is to meet people.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, like, oh wow, someone is coming! Look, someone is coming. Sometimes we could even smell the person coming because because of the insect repellent. And sunscreen is really strong smell.
I thought you were going to say because of the odor of the tramp. We all produce a natural odor.
Oh no, these days people have lots of deodorant, and
Right.
you smell that from miles away. But and it's really nice because those people don't have their Wi-Fi and their telephone, computer, so they have all the time in the world, and we stand around a campfire and we do all these very interesting conversations.
So it wouldn't be uncommon that if that happened, you might doss down, they might join your campsite for a night or something like that?
Yeah, we immediately say, "Oh, stay the night."
Nice.
We try to attract them and give them bread and and hare and possum stew and all that. So for them, it's really nice, and we make friends that way. And they said, "Oh, if you're near town, make sure you come and visit us."
And then they say, do you want to swap, what's your Facebook name? And you say, what's Facebook?
Yeah.
So you can't stay in touch. So you obviously have a connection because you do the book, but I assume you have no other sort of technology, no social media, no nothing like that. You've got an email address, obviously, because we've been emailing.
Yeah.
But is that about it when it comes to the world of modern technology, internet land?
Yeah. So you say you have no connection, but of course our connection is we met.
Yeah, totally. So it's enough.
And so that really keeps a memory. And then we exchange email addresses.
Yeah.
Yep. So when I go into town,
Right.
I found a library.
Yep.
And then I open my inbox, and that's how it goes really well.
Because I was just
No
thinking,
problem at
your if Oprah called, does Oprah still exist? Anyway, if Oprah called and she wanted to talk to you about your book, how would your agent get a hold of you? But as you say, you're in town maybe once or twice maybe once a month. So it just can't be, can you do an interview tomorrow? Because that's not going to get to you. But can you do an interview in September? That's easy.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And then we get, and then in us, this Western world, we get annoyed if people don't reply to our email within that same day. But you're out in the bush for 3 or 4 months and don't reply to emails. So
Well,
that's
the
a good
difference
excuse.
is that they don't expect me
Yeah.
to reply straight away.
What's the longest period of time that you've been without a successful hunt? Like, again, I know this sounds ridiculous to you, but I watch these alone programs, and they might go 3, 4, 5 days without a successful hunt, and they're incredibly hungry. Obviously, you've got some supplies, but have you had periods of days, weeks, etc., that you had an unsuccessful time, specifically in catching rabbit, possum, goat?
Yes, indeed. And that was in the first winter. So we set out to live in the wilderness in 2010 in autumn. And I was going to do the hunting. But as I just said, it was much more difficult than I expected. And but we had as a backup rice and beans and lentils.
Right.
And we found out that wouldn't keep us warm in the mountains. We were about 1,000 meters and much colder than sea level. And we got colder and colder when the winter came. And we were so cold that we woke up with hunger pains in the morning.
Wow.
Because the beans and lentils didn't keep us warm during the night.
So you need some good protein in there.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So Peter said, this is really quite problematic. You have to put in some more because I was responsible for the hunting. He's the cook, you see.
Gotcha.
You have to put in some more effort with trapping. You know, my bow hunting was at that stage disastrous.
Yep.
So I almost given up on it in that first few months. So I put a possum trap, and then I got a possum. But I had no experience with this. I'd seen a friend killing a possum in a trap and it looked all very easy. I thought, okay, I'll just repeat what I saw. But no, it wasn't that easy. It was a really traumatic experience, which I've described in the book. I ended up in tears and Peter angry because I was, not efficient and was all lots of suffering for the poor little animal. But he cooked it up that night, and that was the first time that we were warm during the night.
Wow.
And we didn't wake up with hunger pains. So that meat was really valuable for our energy, which is interesting because I grew up vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
My mother never cooked meat. And I always thought, well, you can live perfectly without meat. I mean, I survived 25 years.
I guess if you've then also got a house that's 22 degrees on the thermostat inside.
Yep.
That's really interesting because it makes me think as well about early settlers, about, people who were living 200 years ago and the importance of, I guess, protein for them as well.
Yeah, because we think, everyone should be vegan, which
Yeah.
is perfect in countries like India,
Yeah.
where this is a part of the culture, but not in places like Southland, where you need the energy to keep warm.
That's really interesting. But then again, the vegan conversation is interesting. We've got someone coming in a few weeks' time who was vegan, and we want to have a chat with him about it, because a lot of the times vegans go that way, not necessarily because of the dietary requirements, but because of the ethical side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And how animals are treated in factory farming and that kind of stuff. But I guess
Yep.
you're actually doing us a favour because you're cleaning up pests
Yep.
and using them to feed yourself, and what could be more ethical than that?
Yes, it's an amazing situation here that the introduced animals, all the introduced animals like the pigs, the deer, the goat, possums,
Yeah.
are classified as a pest. Yeah.
Do you use snares at all, ever?
Yes, I have used them, but they're very difficult. If you live in one place long enough, you can observe where the animals go all
Yeah.
the time, and then you can put a snare
Yeah.
in between the trees. But if you're always moving, you don't see the patterns so quickly.
Have you ever got yourself a wild pig, killed a wild pig?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. What does that taste like? What's the best game meat?
My favorite would be hare, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What does a pig like? Does it taste like the pork we get out of the supermarket, or very different?
Well, you see, I don't really know.
Oh, because you weren't eat. So you didn't eat meat until you went into the bush? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
At
So-
all?
no, I
So
didn't
was
eat-
that possum your first meat?
Yeah, that was basically my first
Your very
meat.
first meat was possum.
Yes, and
And
Peter
you
said,
had
well,
to
this
kill
is
it
meat.
yourself. So you basically
Yeah.
went from being a vegan to killing something and eating it.
Vegetarian. yeah. To killing, and that's why that gamey taste
Yeah.
is what I think. Well, that's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
when you
don't-
come into town, obviously the Writers' Festivals put you up at a hotel and you order a steak or whatever off the menu. What does that taste like to you compared to the meat you're having?
When I'm in town, I'm back to vegetarian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because you
also
don't-
because I don't really know. I'm coming to the supermarket and all that meat thing. I don't know what's what, and it's quite
Yeah.
expensive as well.
Yeah.
And I'll eat an egg or eat bread or whatever.
So do you find, because a lot of people talk about food, in the city, food in society, the way it's packaged up, the way it's processed, the way it's handled being quite bad for us. Things like
Yeah.
levels of salt and sugar and additives and preservatives. Do you notice a change in yourself when you're in a city for a while eating city food? Do you feel it in your body that there's a difference?
Yeah, as I said, I go back to vegetarianism. But the main difference I feel is I get sleep deprived. Because the friends with whom we are staying,
Yeah.
they like to stay up late. They don't go to bed when it's dark,
Right.
because that would be 7 o'clock.
So when you're in the bush, the sun goes down, the head goes down.
That's right. Yeah. So in the winter, we sleep like 12 hours at least.
Wow.
And because we don't have any stress, sleep comes really quite easily.
Yeah.
I mean, we sit around the fire and then get a little cold. And then we sit another hour around the fire. And then we said, let's go to bed. Oh, yes, let's go to bed. Because we don't have a clock.
Yep.
We don't really know that it's that early. And we sleep 12 hours. And that alone does so much for the body. So I think sleeping that much has literally saved me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So that means your clock, so to say, is the sun.
Yeah.
You go out hunting, you say to your husband, I'll be back before dark, or something like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't have to say that. He
No.
knows that, but
But that's the plan.
Yeah.
Have you ever been caught out? Have you ever been unable to get back to camp on that day and have had to kind of bivouac down somewhere, or have you always made it back?
Yeah, I've always made it back. Sometimes in the dark though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I got a headlight.
Yeah.
But if I got an animal and it took longer than expected, then I have to go back in the dark. Yeah.
Is there
Quite
anything you
exciting.
miss about the city, or about just not even the city? Because Nelson's, it is a city, but it's a smaller place. Is there anything you miss about? And don't say the people, because that's an obvious one. Other than the people, friends and family, is there
Yeah.
anything you miss from civilization?
Sometimes I get really sick of the smell of smoke.
From-
Even the smoke is in all my clothing, in my hair. And sometimes, in the beginning, I sort of didn't mind.
Yeah.
Now I'm sometimes so sick of it. When I go hitchhiking, I I apologize for the smell and open the windows
Yeah.
and say sorry for the smell. You know, it's all very smoky because I don't smell it myself anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I'm, for instance, in a hotel room, then I smell my smoke. Suddenly, I smell all that smoke. So I'd love to wash it all with nice fabric softener and make that nice smell.
What do you do for cleaning clothes? Just in the river,
Just in a river.
in
yeah.
the creek?
Yep.
Wash it.
Yeah, so we got special soap, organic stuff, olive soap that we wash our clothing with and our hair and everything really. And so our river is like our lifeline. We do everything with it. So we always camp near the river. We always camp near forest for wood and also for shelter. And we always try to find a flat spot, which sounds logical, but it's really difficult to
Oh,
find.
really?
Yeah.
I was thinking this morning, actually. Obviously, our little podcast is called DOC.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a play on words of the Department of Conservation. I've got to say that slowly now.
Yeah.
But when you are traveling camping, is there ever an issue with the other DOC? Because I'm thinking are there some places you're not allowed to camp? Do you know what those places are? Do you avoid them? Or other people who are going through the bush, they have to pay money to be in certain places like DOC camping grounds or DOC areas. Has there ever been a situation where you have been somewhere you're not supposed to be, or
It's never an issue
No?
because we go much, much further than that.
Right.
So the freedom camping, all that issues with that's for camper vans who are near the road.
yeah,
The moment you take your backpack and you walk off, there is nobody. So we don't see DOC people,
yeah,
hardly, maybe in all those years 2 or 3 times. When they do some pest control, put out some traps or something. For the rest, not at all. We don't see them.
So there'd be no. I guess what I'm saying is there's no regulations that
No.
that you need to follow being 4 days from the road.
No, indeed. Sometimes we stay in a DOC hut, always the ones that are less visited. We
Yeah.
avoid all the touristy ones.
Yeah,
But we got an annual hut pass,
yeah,
so we are allowed to stay there. There are also 700 huts that you can just stay for free.
yeah.
Those are very, very basic huts. I don't know if
Right.
you've ever seen it, but it's basically quite open. Rats and mice can just walk in. Often the ground is just dirt. The bunks are quite basic. So this is really very primitive. And we like those huts because you find on the wall some people written their names and their dates. And sometimes it's really like 100 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about there's times, maybe not so much in the South Island and the Alps, but certainly in parts of the country where you've got fire bans and that sort of thing. Do you ever know that there's a fire ban on in a certain region? Is that ever a concern or an issue?
I guess the fire ban is, with more people coming. But often, of course, we don't know.
Yeah.
We are very, very careful with fires and just make a small cooking fire, which is basically like 10 centimeter wide,
Right.
which is very different from a big bonfire where people put huge logs and they're very difficult to put out. And so that's where the danger is. Those people who think, I go camping, let's make a fire. And then make this huge fire and it's so quickly out of control, one spark and it's gone, That's really very dangerous. But a cooking fire, we don't want to waste any wood because we got to gather all that wood, right? So we're very careful, make a tiny fire, and when the tea is boiled, quickly put it out.
What about just for keeping warm though? And I guess if you're keeping warm, it's going to be cold enough. It's not a fire ban time anyway.
Yeah.
So
So in the winter, we make bigger fires to keep warm.
Yeah.
And we keep that fire going. And it's amazing how warm it is. Because people say, how do you survive in the winter and keep warm? But a fire is fantastic.
And I'm assuming you've got your sleeping bags are all Alpine sleeping bags, rated to negative whatever it is, and
Yeah,
that
minus
sort of thing.
30.
Minus 30.
Yeah.
Do those exist? Do they? Oh my goodness.
I don't think they really would last very long in real minus 30, but a minus 10 would be right. But I've used the possum skins
Yeah.
to make a duvet
Yeah, I was going to ask that as well. What do you do
and a
with the
jacket.
skins?
You see that on the cover of the book. I will quickly put my jacket on for the photo.
Yeah.
And that is really warm, those furs.
So that's a possum skin jacket.
Yeah, so little pieces of possum skin. And I think if you go back in time, people would say, wow, how come you guys keep warm? Because all the synthetic stuff is so cold. Our furs and all our, all the natural materials, wool and all that, it's much warmer.
We should
And
have...
possum skin's quite nice too. You know, it's very soft and it's
Rabbit?
It's possum fur. It's very
possum,
nice and
yeah.
soft and very
Yeah.
very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you come to town,
Hmm?
is there ever something that you kind of go, oh, I can't wait for whatever it is? Whether it's a food treat or an experience, like a hot shower.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. Oh, my goodness. Is there anything when you're thinking about coming to town that you actually look forward to?
I must say that will be email. So
Okay.
that's the contact. Yeah, so I always rush to the library because the library is now the only place. I said, oh, do you have internet? And they said, yeah, Wi-Fi. No, I need an actual computer. It's hard to
Right.
find these days. So I rush to the library, and Peter, if he is ever in town, he tried to avoid it, but he rushes to the fish and chip shop,
Right. To get
Yeah.
fish and chips.
obviously. Yeah.
No.
No,
Nice.
that's a Kiwi. That's a true Kiwi.
Yeah.
And then what about, okay, well, that's another question for the wild. Do you fish the streams? Do you get trout? Do you get that kind of thing out of the water?
I must say I'm slightly lazy with fishing.
Right.
Hunting is relatively easier. So, but yes, we have tried that. We do eeling. We got nets. Yeah, we tried all that.
Do you think you'll ever settle down in the bush? Could you imagine, finding a place in the middle of the bush and that actually being cabin, home, again, my ridiculously Western privileged life about watching people who build places in Alaska, and that's where they sort of live. But it is still very remote and they still live off the land. Because Peter's older than you, isn't he?
Yeah. So I was 22 when I met Peter, and
Yeah.
he was 52.
Right.
So now 13 years further down the track, I'm 35 and he's 65.
So there's a question around
Yeah.
longevity of, people's knees goes, people's backs goes, and obviously living a healthy lifestyle. I'm assuming he's very healthy physically, but at some stage the body starts to wear out physically.
Yeah, so we might do that in the future. But generally, we go with the open door philosophy. That means that we don't work on anything. We don't have a dream that we're gonna make to come through or something, So we go with whatever is offered. So a good example is the book.
Yep.
I never thought of writing the book.
Yeah.
And then the publisher asked me after Tiararoa, would you be interested in writing a book? I thought, writing a book? I've only ever written 2 pages. That was for a magazine called Mind Food. And I described one day in our life. And this particular person from Allen and Unwin Publishers had read this. And she contacted me. And I thought, well, I may as well try. And so that's a good example of the open door philosophy. And if someone says, I'm going to sail to Fiji, would you like to come? You would say, oh, yes. Because we got time, you see.
Yep.
And that's the biggest difference.
So you have the freedom to do what you want when you want.
Yeah.
But I guess, which is great, the flip side to that, because there's 2 sides to every coin, is if no planning for the future. What if something happened significant tomorrow and you weren't prepared for it?
Yeah. Then hopefully we have the survival skills
Yep.
to deal with whatever, even if it's a disaster. Also, what makes a big difference is we have some savings. So a lot of people say, oh, I want to live in a bush. What should I do first? And then I'll say have savings first.
Yeah.
Because you need some money also as a backup.
Yep.
And if things go wrong, you need to have money to help yourself. Because I don't think it's fair to rely on other people to have this life of freedom. And
Yep.
then when it comes to a halt, that you then say, oh, please, Mommy and Daddy, help me. Yeah.
Or the other thing I was thinking is people may want to do what you're doing, and they could go on, they could get government support. They could go on a benefit, and
Yeah.
that would then give them a few $100s a week, more than $100 a week, certainly. You don't do that either. That's not a part of your ideology or ethos.
No, not really. I mean, I'm fit and healthy. I could work.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very unfair that the person who lives there should go to work so that I can live in the bush. Yeah, that's really quite ridiculous. And I wouldn't find that fair. I would be quite pissed off if I was the person going to work. So, no.
How did you actually physically write it?
Yeah, good question.
Because
so,
you're obviously not got
yeah.
a laptop in the bush with you.
No, so the publisher asked me, could you write a book? And I thought, well, how are we going to do that? I haven't got a laptop. So I asked a friend. He said, oh, you can have my old laptop.
Okay.
Borrow it.
But then how do you charge it?
Exactly. So we had to, so I hitchhiked to town one day.
Yeah.
And the woman asked, what are you doing? And I said, well, just for something to say. I said, I'm asked to write this book, but we don't have anywhere to live. You know, at the moment we're in a tent. And she said, come to my cook's cottage. I live on a farm that was 80 kilometers from Masterton, North Island.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you can stay there and write your book. So really friendly.
Wow.
So these sort of offers. So if you don't plan anything, people offer things. And we had accommodation. This particular cottage was really old, had no warm water, very primitive, but electricity. So I had electricity, I had a laptop. I had 5 months to write it. I woke up every day at 7 o'clock in the morning and wrote till 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
I didn't see any point in having holidays. So, it's just full-time writing. And then I was done and we went back into the bush.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you're a little bit mad, eh?
Mad?
Yeah, a little bit kind of crazy, a bit out there. Because even that, like, work. I mean, I know several authors working from 7 till 9 for, what did you say, for 5 months.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's a massive workload.
Oh, well, I was sort of just fully into it. But I didn't see myself as an author.
Yeah.
Meaning that I knew it was only 5 months.
Right.
And the longer it would take me, the longer it would take before we go back into the bush.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I'm just going to finish this and that's then done. But indeed, maybe if I had a normal life, I would be quite a workaholic.
Yeah. It seems like you do everything at about 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, maybe just 100%.
Yeah. 103%. Yeah, because you're not literally moving fast. You take your time, but it's all or nothing. It's you're in. This is life today. I'm 100% in.
Yeah, I think that's the way to live, actually. Also, then you live fully and you come to the end of it.
Yep.
And when the book was done, I'll put in all my effort and then it's done. I can forget about it.
I was thinking this morning about you, and this is a completely irrelevant question, possibly.
Yeah.
But it just crossed my mind. So we do this live and it can't be cut out. If we were recording this, we'd go, if this doesn't work, we'll cut it out. But we do this live, so we can't cut this out. So this is what we're going to ask anyway.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of ideology that you do this for, which is a religious ideology?
No.
I don't know why I thought that. I just thought it feels like like the Amish. They do this back to nature sort of living in a certain way, and they feel it's an ideology that has some kind of affiliation with a belief. I mean, you do have an affiliation with a belief, obviously, but it's just not religious because it's about, ethical living? If someone said to you, in a nutshell, one sentence, why do you do this? What would the answer be?
It's just an adventure.
So that's it.
Yeah.
It's an adventure.
Yeah, indeed. Not really beliefs behind it. Although when we set out, we did think what would happen with you, with your mind and your body, when you live for long periods of time away from civilization.
Yeah.
Would you go natural in the sense of would you become naturally healthy? Would your body look natural again? Like the pictures you see from Papua New Guinea 30 years ago, 100 years ago. And we were interested in what would happen. Yeah.
Also, like Māori, for example, find the bush and the land to be a very spiritual place. I mean, I don't know what that means, but
no, me neither.
Does it affect you? Is it like, I mean, you were saying before that nature kind of controls you. You don't control nature.
Yeah.
Surely that element of being small in a big place, that must feel amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're small in a big place. Yeah, well said. So you feel very small. You're completely subject to nature. So your psychological problems and worries seems even smaller and very insignificant and very irrelevant. And so they seem to dissolve after some time.
Wow.
And in its place, you have space in your mind. And with that comes clarity. And suddenly you think, well, this obviously I should behave like this, or I should say this or that to a person who we meet, or I should say this to my parents, for instance. And so there's a lot more clarity there in daily life, which I found interesting. And there's more space in my mind and less worries.
If you were to give a message to the people who are living that anxious, anxiety-ridden, stressful life in the city, what would you say to them?
What I notice myself is the effect of trees. I'm not at all a new age spiritual person, but I notice in myself that trees seem to lift the burden of your mind. Yeah, so even if you just go for 1 minute to the park, I think that has a positive effect, and I think scientists have found the same thing.
Amazing. So you're not a spiritual person, but there's like a connection there that it feels like it can help in life.
Yeah.
Well, the book is Women in the Wilderness, a story of survival, love, and self-discovery in New Zealand. If people want to know more about the book and how to get it, they just Google it. Is there a website for it?
Yeah, there's a website, miriamlanswood.com, and you can buy the book online. You can also listen to audiobook, and there's also an ebook. And if you want to buy the book for relatives overseas, it's also in Chinese, German, Dutch, and French, and British.
In British. Is it different from Kiwi English?
Yes, they did do some changes in the text.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know any that come to mind? Things that they changed?
No, some political correctness, I believe. Some health and safety.
There you go. There you are in your possum jacket.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Hey, well, thank you for coming in and hanging out with us for some time this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure.
From here, if people manage to pick up on this podcast today or tomorrow, you're heading to Auckland. There's another Writers' Festival in Auckland.
Yeah.
And you're
it
going to be
starts
there?
on Thursday, and my session will be on Sunday.
Fantastic. Miriam Lanswood, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.